Am I the asshole for faking my giving birth? I'll keep this as short as possible. I, 25 female, am pregnant with the baby due in a couple of days. My husband, 25 male, promised that he would be the one to drive me to the hospital and that he will be glued to the phone until birth. He works only 10 minutes from our home and his boss agreed to let him go when the birth happens. The problem is my mother-in-law. My husband and her have an unhealthy, in my opinion, strong bond, and she is overly involved in our relationship, which has caused many issues in the past. She requires his attention every day. She has suggested moving in with us ever since I became pregnant. She also has emergencies whenever we have anniversaries, important occasions like my birthday, etc. As the date is approaching, I became increasingly worried that his mother will have an emergency during birth and I will have trouble getting to the hospital or will be forced to be alone during it. I voiced my concerns and it caused fights between me and them. I even suggested asking my best friend to drive me and keep me company, as I'm scared of giving birth, but it was shot down with, quote, "How can't you trust your own husband?" So I'm not proud of it, but I faked giving birth yesterday. I called my hubby at work, told him it started. He said he will be right there. After half an hour, I called him to ask where he was, and he didn't answer. After almost an hour, he called me to say he is at the hospital with his mom because, guess what? She is having a medical emergency. Apparently, he called her to tell her I'm giving birth, and she got, quote, a heart attack from excitement. He said he will have to miss my birth and actually asked me to call my friend to drive me and stay with me. ... I admit I was very angry and heartbroken, so I told him I wasn't actually giving birth and that it was a test that showed me how he would actually behave versus what he said he would do, and that it proved he would always care for his mother more than his own wife who was carrying his child. He was very angry and even blamed me for his mother's heart attack in the moment. Stop. His mom, of course, didn't have a heart attack, but a, quote, false alarm. I felt very justified, but now that we have talked, I feel really guilty. He said he feels manipulated and gaslighted. That just because his mother lied about the emergency doesn't mean I should lie to him. He said that marriage is built on trust, so I have to trust him instead of lying to him to prove a point. He even said that he didn't choose his mother over me, but chose a bigger emergency and that he knew I could handle getting to the hospital. But his mother needed him more and that a heart attack is more serious. I pointed out she lied, but he said he couldn't have known that and that I was, quote, just as bad for lying. I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I the asshole? Edit. Just because I don't want to be misunderstood. I did what I did because I am terrified to give birth alone. My friend would have to ask for a day off in advance, so she'd have to know that she is needed before I actually get contractions. Oh, fuck. My mom died in childbirth, and I don't want to be alone during the scariest moment of my life. Even if I am the asshole, I think this gave me the push I needed to, quote, get my ducks in a row. And my friend already asked for a couple days off to be there when I need it. I'm just so scared. Edit 2. To answer a common question, why did you marry him? Wasn't he putting his mom first from the beginning? I suppose it is a fair question, but it was never that bad. Well, now it is so. But when we first started, it was lovely. His mother was barely a footnote in our relationship because we were at uni and far away. I suppose my greatest mistake was agreeing to move into his town versus moving into mine. I come from a town on the opposite side of the country. Our uni was in the middle, so to speak, and his mom, while nosy and controlling, was far away and very easy to write off. When we got married, we moved into his town for logistic reasons. He already had a job lined up in his town. I didn't. We have been living here for a year and a half, and it has gotten progressively worse until now. When he isn't in contact with her, he is a good partner. But when you add her into the equation, he becomes a different person. Even his friends see it and have asked me about it. Right now, I want to focus on my baby, but after birth, I think I will have to rethink our life together. I just can't spend the rest of my life in a triad with his mother.
Am I wrong for giving CPR to my friend when his wife said I don't have consent? I, 26 male, have been trained for CPR through almost every period of my life and fortunately never had to use it until now. I learned CPR through Boy Scouts, high school health class, personal trainer class, and previous work training. I work at a convenience store and experience many regulars. This regular, for example, is a man that we will call Jerry. Jerry is roughly in his late 40s and early 50s. It happens to always have 10 to 15 conversations on random stuff we bond over. He's also an Eagle Scout, a father, and has a daughter who is about to get married and is over the moon about it. Star Wars fan and loves sports, so there's something we will always talk about. I love Jerry. He's an awesome guy who doesn't talk about work a lot, which I completely understand and respect. 1 week ago, Jerry came into the store with his wife that I have met on occasion of him shopping. Not really a social person, which my wife isn't either, so I understand. I was on the other aisle when I started to hear heavy breathing at the counter, then following a loud crash and panicking scream. I rush over to see that it's Jerry on the floor unconscious. I quickly run over and get down to assess him. He wasn't breathing or responding to me. I look over at my boss, who we will call Misty, to call 911 and to grab the AED. I began to unbutton Jerry's shirt to start compressions and getting him ready for if we need to use the AED. During this, his wife looks at me and says, "Are you really going to perform CPR? I'd rather have a medical professional than you." I didn't even comprehend this comment and just kept continuing. What seemed like 5 minutes of doing compression was only 1 minute. The wife keeps on yelling at me saying, I don't have the right to touch him without permission or her consent. I ignore her and keep doing compressions and mouth to mouth. That's when we started to hear sirens in the distance, and since we lived in a super small town, it was fortunate to have a hospital close by. The sirens were getting closer, and then suddenly the ambulance was right at our door, and rushing in with the stretcher, one of the paramedics asked if he could take over my round of compressions. Of course, I agree, and we had a smooth transfer of compressions. That's when my boss with the AED in hand comes over, and that's when she's escorted away from the situation to calm her down while the wife was staring daggers into my soul. I was put into a room to calm down. After 10 or so minutes, I hear the wife yell, "I'm going to press charges against that guy. He could have killed my husband." My boss tells me to go home after writing a report and to take a break for a while. Right now, I'm at home scared and waiting for that phone call from a lawyer or someone. I know what I did was right, but I feel like I actually did do something wrong with going against the wife's consent. So, am I the asshole?
Is, am I the astronaut for suspecting my wife after she went to Mexico and spent no money and took no pictures? I am in the middle of probably the biggest crisis of my adult life and I can barely think. So I apologize in advance if this comes across as really weird or rambly. My wife went to Mexico last week for a friend's bachelorette party, and aside from the plane ticket, the hotel, and the first day's food and drinks, she didn't spend a penny all week. I mean, on the credit card, it's clear as day that on Monday and up until about 9 p.m., she was buying dinner, stuff at the hotel, shop, drinks at the bar, souvenirs. And then at 9 p.m., she didn't spend another cent the entire week until she was at her layover airport in Dallas. She says it's because her friend took over and paid for everything. I guess this is plausible, but it's still giving me a funny feeling. What is worse is that my wife is a person who posts her entire life on Instagram and TikTok, mostly Instagram. But if she does anything from getting a latte to picking up the kids at school, she will post it either as a picture or as a story. The last thing she posted on TikTok was that a trend of people jumping into their vacation from the airport. And after that, her social media is blank. I was kind of keeping an eye on it because I was excited for her to go on the trip. And again, I guess it's plausible, but it gives me a funny feeling. When she got home, I said I can't wait to see all the pics she took. And she really blew me off and said she just didn't feel like taking pics that week. She has also been incredibly distant. And last night she said she just felt like sleeping on the couch because the AC hits better. This is 100% true, but I swear I heard her talking on the phone in the middle of the night. When I got up to check on her, I accidentally tripped over the dog and made a huge racket, so when I got downstairs, she appeared to be asleep. I brought all of this up this morning and said I'm not accusing her of anything, but all of this put together is making me feel uneasy. I wasn't trying to bait her or fight with her, just get my feelings on the table. She said, "You are a major asshole for bringing this up on her first day back at work." I said I wasn't trying to pry, just communicating with her, and she said, "Your communication is prying, and I am not discussing this with you ever again." She then took the kids to summer camp and left. Am I the astronaut? Okay, let's dive into the edit here. Edit. So I realized that her text probably synced to her iPad, so I just checked. Took me a while to figure out the passcode, but I did. But there was an iMessage at 9:15 the night she got to the resort to a number with no contact info that said, "Okay, I'll meet you in the lobby." Is the app you said Signal? I looked up Signal, and it's kind of like WhatsApp. The iPad doesn't have Signal on it. So she downloaded a different app to chat with somebody and then deleted it. Edit 2, if you've been following my comments, you've seen that my sister is coming over and she's an insane internet sleuth and is relentless when it comes to this kind of cheating stuff. She also scares me a bit, so I'm hoping this isn't a mistake. I'm going to probably stop responding for a while so we can talk and she can do her thing. I am numb, but she can do this. Thanks for everyone and the nice comments and the reality check. It's not looking good. Edit 3, she cheated. My sister was able to get lots of info from the real estate guy, and my wife denied it at first, but then admitted it. Sorry it took so long to update, but I'm numb. I have literally zero idea what to do now. Edit 5! I know people really want updates, and we've been talking, arguing, screaming, threatening all day long. I'm more confused than I was this morning, that's for sure. But I'm also confused, exhausted, sad, upset, nervous, and I don't know what to do. I did make a preliminary appointment with a family law attorney tomorrow to talk about protecting assets and how to navigate the legal way ahead, regardless of what I choose to do. I will say there's a subreddit that this was cross-posted to, and it may be the most toxic group of people I've ever seen online, and I feel really bad for those people. As for the privacy issues, no one has figured out who we are. That's not a challenge, by the way. I'm very tired, and I doubt people are still invested, but if there's still an interest, I can update either on this post or a new one in a few days. I'm really hoping to sleep tonight. My sister still has the kids, and they are having a blast and went to the lake with her boyfriend's family today, so I'm glad they're in good hands. Official update. Good morning, everyone. I know it's been a while, but as I'm sure you can imagine, this has been the worst week of my life, and it's been an absolute whirlwind of activity trying to get things set up in a life that I don't really even recognize anymore. First of all, I'm now in the process of getting a legal separation from my wife with the aim of getting divorced. She and I both want to take the process very slow so it's fair to everyone. I do have a personal lawyer who is handling the separation, but even she recommends that it will be cheaper and easier for us to do a mediated divorce. She, edit the lawyer, not my wife, has a colleague who has this sort of package deal where we will work together with a certified counselor while we are meeting with the mediation lawyer to handle the legal aspects. The goal is to learn to be co-parents and friendly while we go through the breakup. I know my wife is hoping to see the counselor with the aim of reconciling. I am doing the counseling so I can learn how to treat her with some sort of respect as the mother of my kids for their benefit. I can't possibly see reconciling, but I guess stranger things have happened. Just to those of you who read along last week, know that my sister is one of those internet sleuths who, if you can tell her a first initial in someone's eye color, she can come up with the person's entire life history in a matter of minutes. I've pretty much let her handle all of the dirty work. She did some research on the guy, and he's an absolute piece of shit. He has judgments and liens against him all over the country. He has 6 kids with 4 different women and is delinquent on child support in most of them. And it seems like his MO is to just wait until the kid turns 18 and hope they stop coming after him. And this is the guy my wife picked to ruin everything for. My sister did get in touch with his current wife and said that she has pics and text messages to prove that he was cheating, and so far has not heard back from her. Who knows what's going on with that? My assumption is it's happened so many times she expects it and tolerates it, or maybe we will hear back from her. It was the first gut reaction that I felt too. It's not a surprise to her, and it's happened before. My wife and I are still in the house together until the separation is official, and we may continue to be even after the legal separation is done. I just don't know, and I figure as long as we can be friendly to each other, then it's okay. I had to go away on business last week, and when I got back on Saturday, it was pretty clear the fight in her was gone, and she wanted to talk and accept full responsibility, and was willing to come clean about the whole thing. I told her I really didn't need to hear anymore because her affair partner had confessed the whole thing and even sent pics. I think her thing now is that she's utterly humiliated and has been very quiet, even obsequious as her general manner around the house. It's not really what I want because I didn't get married to have a servant, and the change in her normal fiery and funny personality is only a reminder that something is really wrong. Kids are doing fine. They're spending a lot of time with my sister and her boyfriend and his family, so hopefully looking back, this will just be the summer before their parents got divorced and are missing the turmoil in the house. I guess if there are questions, I can try to answer them, but that's pretty much what's been going on here. Okay, here's the update that is on surviving infidelity. Hello, my posts from the last 2 weeks have gained quite a bit of traction on the AITAH pages, and several people have advised me to post here. Long story short is that my wife went on a trip to Mexico and had a mostly emotional/financial affair, but it got physical at least once. It certainly would have been more, but the guy had pretty severe health issues. I am beside myself with anger and embarrassment, but as the days have gone on, I am thinking that I can't live without her. We have been together since we were 13. We have kids. I have a side business with her dad. I'm great friends with her brother, and my family loves her like a daughter. We're scheduled to bring the divorce mediation next week while also doing co-parent counseling, so the process is moving forward. Part of me feels like I'm grasping at straws to forgive her, but part of me feels like she has shown me a lot of grace and forgiveness, and I should give her the same chances she gave me. When we were 15, I cheated on her while I was at a baseball camp. Not only did I cheat on her, I dumped her when I got home, explicitly told her it was her fault that I cheated on her because the girl wasn't a good girl Christian. And then I dated other girls that that school year and rubbed it in her nose at every opportunity. It wasn't until she started dating that I realized how sorry I was and begged her to take me back. In 17 years, she's never held my behavior against me, except for some light ribbing now that we're older. She forgave me unequivocally, and I vowed that I would never hurt her like that again, and I truly haven't. But I can admit cheating as a horny 15-year-old guy is a far cry from cheating as a 32-year-old mother of two. She had so much more to lose and so many more people who would be hurt by her actions, but she loved me enough to forgive me even though it must have crushed her. I have to admit there's a huge part of me that feels I owe her a second chance because she gave me one, even though the circumstances are so much different. I'm not even really asking what I should or should not forgive her. Rather, are these emotions normal? Am I rationalizing something that should not be rationalized?
So my roommate ripped my passport, and I leave for Europe in 3 days, and it's still not fixed yet. So, before you're like, why the fuck would they do that? That's an excellent question. That's actually the question that's been on mine and everybody else's mind that knows about the situation. Let's wind it back to the end of May, okay? I'm getting ready to go on a 1-week trip to Chicago, and my roommate and I get in, like, not like a fight. I'm not gonna get into it, but I noticed some stuff, and I contacted a healthcare professional, and, like, they were just not happy that I did that. Midway through the Chicago trip, I get a text. Like, hey, we need to have a conversation. Like, I don't really want to talk about it over text, but, like, we need to talk about what happened before you left for the trip. I get back, and we have this conversation, and they're like, what you did was really mean, and it was horrible and hurtful, and, like, I don't know if our relationship is gonna recover from this, and, like, I'm feeling horrible in the moment. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so sorry that it made you, like, feel so horrible. I was just looking out for your best interest. Couple days go by, it's, like, really tense and awkward in the apartment, but we end up at the same birthday party from, like, an old friend group of mine. Like, I had gotten invited, and my roommate was, like, close with that group of people as well through me. I'm not gonna talk about the details of this party, but the shady shit that went down was I leave the bar, I'm, like, having a panic attack. It was not a good night for yours truly, but I started sending this message, and, like, you know what? It's a sharp message, okay? It was to my roommate, and I was like, this is fucked up. How could you do this? Da, 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 da. Which, like, I mean, go me, but also, like, I did come down a little hard. I ended up staying at my boyfriend's that night, and then the next day I get a text. It's like, hey, so, like, we should definitely talk about what happened. Also, I need to see you in person because I have something I need to tell you, and it could affect your travel plan. Me and Furb were like, what could affect my travel plans? Like, we're trying to brainstorm things. I called my mom. I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. We came to the conclusion that, like, they were just, like, being dramatic. They're like, my travel plans are fine. Like, I'm still going to Europe. Of course, we couldn't find a time to talk that day, so I had to stay with that for 24 hours, which, like, I hate when people are like, hey, I need to tell you this thing, but, like, I'm not gonna tell you right now. Like, you're just gonna have to sit and let your brain go, doot, 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 doot. Like, fuck you, dude. Like, my apartment, and my roommate and I sit down, and then they start off by being like, you know, I'm so sorry, like, from your perspective, I can totally understand how that would have been really hurtful yesterday, and, like, it wasn't my intention. We're just currently in this cycle of accidentally hurting each other, and I'm like, yeah, I agree, and I'm thinking, like, this is the great resolve. Like, we've lived together for 3 years, so I'm like, oh, like, what? Now I'm like, okay, so what's gonna affect my travel plan? We're like, okay, I'm gonna tell you something, and you're probably gonna be very upset, and I just want to say that I'm sorry in advance. And I'm like, okay, like, did you drink my milk? Like, what's going on? And then we're like, when you went to Chicago, I was still very upset about the prior situation, so I went into your room and I found your passport book and I ripped the signature page out of it. I would pay so much money to see what my face looked like in that moment because I was just like, oh! I was just so in shock that I, like, couldn't really say anything, and I was like, you know what, like, thank you for letting me know, like, you could have really fucked me over at TSA, and again, I was just so in shock that I just got up, and I was like, I need, like, a minute. I was like, I just need to go in my room, I just need to sit down, and then I, like, text my boyfriend, I text my parents, and I'm like, what the fuck do I do? Literally sounds like book talk. Nope, it is just my life. My roommate had sent me, like, different links for resources on how to get it fixed really quick, and they also gave me an envelope filled with cash to, like, get it replaced, because obviously I'm not paying to get it fixed. Like, bitch, you break it, you buy it. And the way emergency passports work are that you can either send in your information and get, like, a new passport within 2 to 3 weeks, or you have to wait 14 days within your flight to, like, go to the passport office in person and get it fixed, like, same day. Obviously, the first one is so much less stressful, except for the fact that the timeline didn't work out. I was off by, like, 2 days. Like, there was a chance I wasn't gonna get my passport on time if I had mailed it in and just, like, waited and done that option. Then I'm like, great, I have to wait 2 weeks to potentially get an appointment because they're not guaranteed you're gonna get an appointment within 14 days of your flight. It's just, like, if somebody cancels and you can, like, slide into their appointment. I had a trip already booked to go back home for a couple days, so, like, they end up going home, so I'm in the apartment by myself, and, like, my boyfriend's staying with me because, like, I'm just so fucking anxious, obviously. And when they were gone, I was like, I just, like, don't feel safe anymore. Like, this house does not feel like a home, and that's, like, genuinely the truth. Trust is broken. Like, when you live with someone, you have to trust that they're not gonna, like, go through your things, eat your food, rip your passport. And I was gonna leave the lease in October, which is, like, when it initially was going to end, but I was like, after this, I'm like, I don't want to be there. Like, I need to get a sublet now and, like, get the fuck out. Next time, when I was like, hey, I'm sorry we can't have this conversation in person, but, like, I'm going to end the lease and look for a sublet. I'm just not really comfortable in the apartment anymore. me know what you want to do about our shared furniture, because we had bought like a rug, a TV set, and then the TV stand. And they're like, yeah, I think a sublet's a great idea, but I also want to point out the fact that I've let you use my appliances as we've lived together, and that pissed me the fuck off. And I'm like, did you want me to bring my own couch, like my own pots and pans? Like, we were in a tiny apartment. Like, I've let you use my coffee maker, my air fryer, my TV, my PlayStation. Like, this is what you do when you live with someone. Like, you just share stuff. Like, you know, we can just talk about this in person, but right now I'm just with my friends and family, and I'm just trying to reconnect with them, like really focus on being in the moment. And I'm like, I'm so glad that you get to go on this healing journey as I have to sit here and clean up this entire mess. So I reached out to my landlord and I'm like, hey, do you guys like do sublets? And they were like, oh no, we don't. And I was like, okay, so like, is it a way that I could break my lease? And they were like, yeah, you'd have to pay $400 and then you'd have to find someone to replace you on your lease. So I'm like, oh, I would just have to pay for someone to be my sublet. And I'm like, okay, that's so illegal. And you know, watching Legally Blonde the musical slime tutorials on repeat at age 16 basically made me a lawyer anyways. So I start reading like real property law. I start reading my lease. And then I send this lawyer ass email. Like, I showed it to my mom and she's like, oh my God, this is great. Who helped you? And I was like, mother, I wrote it myself. But it was like, in real property law, section 7, part B, 2A7AC. It was like, I ate this up. Like, I'm getting off of the lease. And then of course they ghosted me for about a week. You're left off with my landlord literally ghosting me because I sent some Elle Woods ass email. And after like 5 days of me being like, hey, following up, hey, and I was like, they're just not going to respond unless I get a lawyer involved. Keep in mind, as I'm in this battle with my landlord, I'm simultaneously showing people the apartment, like I'm trying to get my room subletted. And it just like felt wrong to show people the apartment, you know what I mean? Like people would be like, oh, why are you moving out? And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to Europe, which like isn't a lie, but I don't want to be like, hey, make sure to lock your doors at night so your passport doesn't get ripped. I'm doing all of this myself, right? Like I did the Facebook ad, I'm interviewing the people, I'm bringing them in. Like my roommate extended their trip. I was trying to move out because of something that they did. And I was like, you know what? I was so pissed off. I was like, fuck this. I'm just gonna like get off the lease. Like that is the goal. It's getting off the lease. They can deal with the sublet. They can deal with it. I don't care. Like I'm done being nice. So I contact some lawyers and I'm like, hey, how do I get off this lease? This is the situation. My landlord is ghosting me. What do I do? I think like 3 of them got back to me, but all of them were like, I cannot help you unless you press charges. Like you press criminal charges. You like go fill out a police report. And I'm like, that's just something I wanted to avoid. We've also lived together for so long. And like the first 2 years we were super close. And like, it's really sad and like hard to think about. But like, I was like, I don't want to sue them. But I did, however, out of curiosity, just like Google what would happen if I sued them. And apparently because your government is passport property, if the damage is more than $100, I could sue them for up to $250,000 and they could serve 10 years in prison, which is crazy. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Like that feels really intense, but I was like, either way, I don't want them to go to prison. Like I don't want them to be like, I don't want their money. I just want to be off the lease and just like away from them. I'm talking to my parents. I'm talking to Ferb, aka my boyfriend, and they were all just like, I don't really know what to do, Molly. Like you may just have to like pay the rent or stick it out or try to get a sublet. And I was like, well, I don't want to get a sublet because I don't want to be liable, A, for this apartment, and B, like something bad happens to someone, it's going to be on me. And I'm like, those are just not options. And like, I'm not giving up. Like, I'm not just going to pay rent in this place for the next, 4 months. So I found a bit of a loophole because I'm that bitch. And basically, usually family court is just for like divorces or like issues with like blood relatives. But because we've been in an intimate relationship, meaning we've like lived together for a long period of time, we can take this through family court, which is a lot less intense. I go to court and I explain everything. I'm like, I don't want to sue anyone. There's no police reports, no nothing. I just like want to feel safe and protected. So they gave me an order of protection. Here's the kicker. The day that I went to court, I was like, wow, this is fucking crazy. I was like, wow, I don't feel good. I feel super nauseous. To get all the court shit figured out, we have to go back to my apartment and pack everything up and put it in a storage unit because, I'm going to Europe and I'm not going to have an apartment when I get back. We get back to my apartment and I'm like, honestly, Nate, I just need to take a nap for a minute. Like, I am just not feeling that well. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I'll start taking down your posters or whatever. I take a half an hour nap and I wake up with 103-degree fever. Not only that, but I'm unable to stand up. I'm yakking my lungs out. My tonsils are like the size of golf balls. And I think my temperature does end up getting to 104, like within the 3 days of death that I had. So my poor fucking boyfriend packed up my entire apartment and then he put it all in the storage unit doing 2 different trips in like such intense traffic as I'm just like...
Story time about the girl that completely changed my brain chemistry when it comes to friendships. I transferred to the school in the middle of the year and I had math class with this girl named Megan. Megan had like a bit of an alternative personality. Not like she dressed alternatively, but she was very different from the other people at our age because she cared a lot more about the vibes of the person to be friends with rather than the things that they had. Which at this particular school, what you had made such a difference. Pretty sure like Uggs, Toms, Chucks, Vans, all that stuff was like a big deal at that point in time. And your girl was shopping at Walmart and Kmart, like stuff on low way over there. We wasn't in those name brands or whatever. Which I think it's hilarious because she had a group of friends that called themselves like the clique or the group or something, and they was not fooling with me whatsoever. Obviously, we grew up, we matured or whatever, but they was not fooling with me at that point in time at all. Adding a new serum to my routine, I'm gonna try it out. It's going with Medihill Blemish Pads. This is their blemish repair serum with niacinamide. Let's see how it does. But back to the story. So Megan and I had class together and we did course. Ooh. It's an interesting color. Anyways, and we did course together. So we got cool over the course of some time. And my mom met her a couple of times because my mom came to a few of my course concerts. And she actually liked her. If you got a mama like mine, my mother to this day has still never said she's like any of my friends. Ever. Like, my mom is not the type of person to just be liking folks. And she'll tell you that herself. Well, one day, Megan invited me to her birthday party. And it was one of those where some people came for the party and then a couple people get to stay the night after the fact. She invited me to stay the night. I was surprised that my mom said yes, but I guess not too surprised because, again, this was the only friend that my mother ever said she liked. She was not letting me stay at folks' houses, you know what I'm saying? So we go over there and I'm having a great time. Mind you, in my book, Megan was rich. Now, obviously, as an adult, I know that she was not rich. They had name brand snacks. Okay, she had her own room. They even had like this little extra room that was real cool, you know what I'm saying? Like this little attic space. In my book, sis was rich. Well, during this friendship, she asked me if she could come to my house. And I started to panic because I'm like, I'm not about to have this little girl go to my house. That's no. You are rich. I am not. You're not coming to my crib. At the time, we lived in this 2-bedroom townhouse, and my bedroom was a pull-out couch in the living room. My brothers had one room upstairs, my 2 brothers. Some people are like, why did they have a bedroom? Because they stank. Like, they were at that age where they was out here funky, okay? Nobody was about to let them have the living room, have that whole place smelling. Me and my sister, we shared a closet and a dresser with my mom, which had the other room upstairs. And I did not want this girl to come to my place. I just knew that when I called my mom to ask her if she could stay the night, because my mama did not let people come over. I knew she was going to say no. I just knew. Tell me why. Why did my mother say yes? And this was a girl that loved no. I'm talking, she loved saying no more than a 2-year-old, and you know how they get when they learn the word no, okay? That was my mama all day, every day. So why in the world you saying yes all of a sudden? I am panicking. My mama being who she is, it didn't matter where we lived. It didn't matter how much we had or did not have. That house was going to look clean and smell good. She didn't play about that. But we were not allowed to pull out the pull-out couch nor have the living room look like our bedroom during the day. But we were coming over closer to the evening because her parents were going to drop us off. I'm sitting here like, oh my God, I don't want her to see my place. Tell me why. When we get over there, my sister had the pull-out couch pulled out, you know, ready to go because it was already evening time. Without skipping a beat. This girl is lit. Real quick, let's have a moment for this glow. Okay, my period's about to start, so this bump came back. Ugh, so disrespectful. But look at this glow. All right, that's the story. Megan sees this pull-out couch, and she acted like it was the coolest thing in the world. I mean, sis was hype, and I'm over here like flabbergasted, astonished. Because we went to a school where 1, you got picked on for looking like me, and for 2, you definitely got picked on for living like me. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that there weren't any other poor kids in the school, but I was not having friends at my house, so people really didn't know I was sleeping on a pull-out couch like that. Y'all weren't coming to my crib to see that. I made all the Kmart clothes at school, but y'all didn't know what that house was like. You know what I'm saying? But it was clean. Don't get it twisted now. She made it sound like it was the best thing in the world, and from that day forward, I kid you not, it changed my standard of friendships. Because at that point, the only level of friendships that I had really made, people who cared more about name brand shoes you had, the name brand clothes you had, what electronics you had. I also had friends that treated things like a competition. So, like I said, at this school, you got picked on if you looked like me. There were only a handful of other people that looked like me, especially at this point in time. Like when we got in high school, there was more people. And so a lot of them would tear down the other ones that looked like us. Okay, I had one of them tell me I look like burnt toast compared to them. I had another one try to be like, well, I'm more white than you because my mom is white and my dad is black. I don't care. Obviously, I didn't graduate from that school. Well, all of that said, my brain chemistry was completely switched. It turned into this thing where it's like, oh, like good friends don't compete with you. Good friends don't make you feel like trash because you don't have the things that they have. Not only that, like we get over there, we're cutting on like the music videos on demand, like lit singing to Super Bass and When I'm Gone by Eminem or Mockingbird or something like that. Like I kid you not, from that year, that summer coming up, well, I want to say we spent so many days together during that summer. And one day, this is gonna sound so crazy. One day we were in my bathroom and we pretended that my bathroom was a swimming pool. Like my bathtub was a swimming pool. We got into our bathing suits and sat in a bathtub with the little like fusing balls or whatever because she had brought some over. Like we would just do dumb creative stuff. Think about how creative the Backyardigans were. That is the way that our friendship was. To this day, when I tell you, I very much appreciate the friendship that I had in her. And I'm not going to say I didn't have other good friends. I had 2 other really good friends at that point in time, at least at that age. Belle and Kiana. Love the both of y'all. But I would say Megan is the person that I allowed myself to get the closest to see the most of how I was living and the way that I was growing up. And she just can be, she could care less about any of that. She cared way more about vibes and the friendship in and of itself. And I appreciate that because that let me know, in general, it didn't matter what I have. If somebody is really your friend, they're just going to appreciate you. And I very much changed the way that I looked for friends, that changed the way that I befriended people from that friendship on. Now the friendship over time, it died down. Like I moved a lot. I never stayed in one place or one house longer than a year. I switched schools a lot. And it's very easy to lose friends when you make when you move as much as I did. But we were still cool. She's good people all together. So moral of the story. Don't become friends with people who care too much about what you have. Don't become friends with people who like to compete with you. Because even though we are adults, people still are like that. And it's kind of crazy. But shout out to you, Megan. If you see this, you are a real one.
Am I in the wrong for reporting my wife for bringing me snacks in the hospital? I'm 32, and about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with binge eating disorder. To put it simply, I eat compulsively, even when I'm not hungry. My BMI is 43, putting me in the class 3 obesity range. Since my diagnosis, I have not improved whatsoever. Therapy and support groups have a positive effect on my mentality, but even 2 hours after, I'll be in the line for the drive-thru. It's affected my health, my mental health, my finances, and of course, my wife. My wife is 37. She's average size and eventually agreed that I may need actual medical intervention. After a lot of deliberation, we packed up and temporarily moved to the States so I could participate in an inpatient program as part of a research study. Apparently, intervention programs for BED can be pretty hit or miss, and so this one is a new take on them, being 6 months instead of the typical 30 to 90 days. I'm currently at the end of my first month and everything is going very well. I've made a lot of friends in the program as well. At the end of the 1 month mark, visitation opened up and my wife could now visit me. Obviously, she jumped at the chance and came to see me 2 days ago. We headed to my room where she took her backpack off and pulled out jalapeno chips and colas, 2 of my most common binge items. At first, I freaked out, but she explained that I deserved a break and went into detail about how much trouble she went through to smuggle them through. I immediately shouted for the nurse who forcefully removed the products from her hands and then escorted her out of the hospital with a full team. My wife is now completely banned from the premises, and she's furious at me. The nurses and doctors have expressed nothing but gratitude and told me that if I had indulged, I would have instantly been removed from the program. One thing that my wife said that made me think she had a point was instead of telling her to put the snacks away and take them home, I went for the nuclear option of calling other people. I know that her bringing me snacks was objectively wrong, but was my reaction over the top?